Hello, everybody. Good morning. And welcome to Edinburgh. I know you've been here for some time already, but I wanted to begin by saying what an incredible experience this is, obviously for you, but also for us. The DLN is an extraordinary organisation. I think none of us really knew what to expect when we were first approached and told that you were descending here. And what I can say is, over the last 48 hours, you've helped open our eyes to our home city as well. Not just the places, not just meeting all of you and seeing all of the wonderful work, hearing about the wonderful work that you do, but also the best haggis I've ever had last night, and the best address to the haggis too. And that is no mean feat, so I would like to start by giving a round of applause to the wonderful work that Michael and Megan have done to pull all of this together. It is we are here to talk about Scottish craft, and I am the co-founder of somewhere between a shop and a gallery called Bard's down in Leith, which I founded 2 years ago with my husband James. He's an architect. What we wanted to do was bring together a wealth of contemporary Scottish crafts under one roof. I grew up on the Isle of Skye, and my family are the Macdonald clan. Unbelievably, I'll be the 38th High Chief of the Macdonald clan, which blows my mind to this day. So Scotland, Scottish culture is very much in my blood and my bones. I started off as a journalist. I've worked for Wallpaper and Monocle magazines, and then I was the brand director at Ilse Crawford's design studio in London. But Scotland had always been in my future. I wanted to come back, and I wanted to come back with a purpose and apply some of the knowledge and experience that I'd built up in my professional career back in my home territory. So James, my husband, and I, we had spent years travelling around Scotland, and every time we went anywhere, we would always find people making extraordinary things. And it killed us that when we came to Edinburgh or Glasgow, which is the gateway that most people arrive and lead through Scotland, people would find cashmere scarves made in China rather than textiles from Scotland, Loch Ness Monster fridge magnets, things that are obvious emblems of Scottishness but absolutely do a disservice to the wonderful wealth of craft and craftsmanship that exists in the length and breadth of the country and all of the islands. So we founded Bard with that mission to create a platform for Scottish craft, but also to help people understand the value of craft in everyday life. It's purposefully domestic in its setup. Some of you came and saw us yesterday afternoon. We've got another group coming this afternoon. We have a website. We ship things all over the world. Its purpose is to demystify craft, to help people not just see and learn about what's being made, but also to understand the value that it has to live with in everyday life and to use, because craft is a form of living knowledge. It's not something nostalgic. It's something that has always been progressive. It's always been very linked to innovation. It's about mind, hand, and material working together to express a need of a particular person in a particular place at a particular time. We're joined here today by two of our most beloved craftspeople that we work with at Bard, but also two stars in the Scottish craft industry. Juli Bolaños-Durman, who is a glass artist, and Francis Priest, who's a ceramic artist, both based in Edinburgh. What I would like to do is start, Francis, maybe with sort of our home territory. You are not Scottish, but Edinburgh is your adopted home. You've been here, I think you said yesterday, longer than you've lived anywhere else. I'm not gonna...
30 years, next year.
30 years, so you came when you were a baby, obviously.
Thank you.
What to you is, what's it like practicing in Scotland? Why do you practice here?
I mean, I fell in love with the city as soon as I moved here as a student. I fell in love with the land of Scotland. I fell in love with the Highlands and with hill walking. I'm a country girl. And so living in a city like Edinburgh is wonderful. You measure distances in footsteps, you can walk everywhere. We've got a mini mountain in our city, so it very much felt like home. And the cultural offer, as you've sure you've all experienced, is absolutely extraordinary. And I was very lucky that as soon as I graduated, I found a very kind of warm and welcoming community. I found a studio quickly. I was offered some exhibitions. The support from the central government was really great at the time. So there was bits of seed funding there to help me get going. So it was a very kind of good place to set up a studio practice, and which is why I've stayed. So now my studio is at Abbey Mount, which is above the Parliament and Holyrood Park. So it's a very nice part of the city. It's very central. And I work in a Victorian school building, which is full of ornament and pattern. So it's an appropriate place for me to be.
It speaks very much to your work. And I think I should have said we've got slides behind us, and I hope you'll be able to deduce that anything that's ceramic is by Francis, anything that's glass is by Juli, and the interiors that you're seeing are the interiors of Bard. Juli, you are Costa Rican and came to Edinburgh to study, and like so many people, never left. What is it about Edinburgh that has drawn you here?
Well, it's been 12 years, so it's quite a while now, and I just love how the community has embraced, and it's a testament to the emphasis on collaboration and how we don't exist in a vacuum. And I'm a sole trader, like Francis as well, and I'm part of a wonderful studio space. Gunnar Grossrains mentioned yesterday briefly about Custom Lane, and where Bard is set up as well. So it's a wonderful place where you go to the kitchen, sit down for a cup of tea or something, and you're discussing ideas. So collaborations are very much alive. And sometimes an idea is a bit too crazy, but then if you chat it out with another friend, that's where the magic happens, because they're approaching the problem solving from a different perspective. So it's a wonderful opportunity to innovate. And that's why being Costa Rican and translating all the time and speaking English halfway is appreciated. I've felt appreciation, and that I have something important to bring to the table. And that's so wonderful, because everybody has a particular joy or perspective that they're inviting to collaborate, and it's wonderful.
That message of collaboration is something that we felt very keenly when we moved up and started putting Bard together. We fell in love with this building. We'd planned to move up and continue our independent practices and maybe open something like Bard 5-10 years down the line. But this building came available, and we thought this is too good an opportunity to pass by. And we spent 10 weeks traveling around Scotland at very short notice, meeting people and pitching to them about this idea. And what amazed us was the fact that everybody said, oh my goodness, we love the idea, but also what can we do to help? Mm-hmm. And that spirit of collaboration is something very, very characteristic of Scottishness, but also Scottish creative industries generally. It's unusual, it doesn't happen everywhere. And we've practiced, James and myself, in several other places, where I'd say competition rather than collaboration is the definitive mode of operation. Mm-hmm. What you mentioned there, Juli, about people maybe working by themselves as craftspeople is interesting. And I think there's this image that people have of being sort of hunched over a workbench or a potter's wheel. But craft doesn't exist in a vacuum, like you said. It's something that is enriched, and that process of craft holding hands beyond the boundaries of its own discipline is something that I think we're seeing far more of, not just in Scotland, but in general. And Francis, your practice, you've had some wonderful experiences in industry.
It's motivated by an understanding about why I practice as a craftsperson, the process, the materiality, the daily experience, and wanting to share that with an audience. The way that a tool runs through a piece of clay, or the way that a surface feels. I want to share that with people. I don't want to create work that's self-contained and sits on a plinth that nobody can engage with. And so I do have a studio practice, as you know, and that's very important to me. But more recently, I've wanted to push that out into the public realm, both in public spaces and in residential spaces, working directly with clients on commissions, and embed into the work tactility that the viewer can get involved with. So the tile works have become a really important part of my practice. They're an extension of the studio practice, but I'm working collaboratively with a manufacturer who specializes in heritage tile making skills. So there's very much a shared language of making there, but they can work at scale. So I've been able to move from cladding the surface of ceramic forms with pattern into cladding the interiors of buildings with pattern, and maybe one day the exterior of buildings as well.
Sure, it's in your future. What do you think the difference is when you can integrate craft into an interior environment? What does it bring to life?
It's an act of care. It enriches spaces, it embeds stories into spaces. Gunner's quote yesterday that we keep returning back to: if we love things, we cherish them. If we cherish them, we preserve them. And for me, that kind of sensual quality that craft brings, that materiality brings, is so important to daily life. And whether that is in a private home or in a public building, I work a lot in hospitals, and being able to bring that to that quality, to that context, is really rewarding for me as a maker, and opens up audiences for my work as well. And it's a very special thing to be able to bring, I think.
You mentioned your work in hospitals. It's amazing that there are clients who understand the value and the difference that incorporating craft into an environment that is essentially hostile and terrifying, that they have that foresight. And you've both had work in Scottish Parliament, but also in care, hospital environments. Huli, there's an inherent joyfulness in the work that you do. And I think bringing that into those environments is such a powerful sort of distraction, but also helps people feel something.
I think it's really important, the why behind the making, and I mean, what a complete privilege to be able to create work as our daily life, but also this is an invitation for the audience to join this process of creativity, joyfulness, and like, how did we solve problems when we were children playing in the backyard, which we're so even privileged to say that now because it's not as common, but that connection on how to solve problems ad hoc, and that creativity and that joyfulness that invites us to regenerate from a place of joy. And in this hectic lifestyle that we're living, how can we face the day-to-day with appreciation for the little things, even touching a surface, like right outside one of the columns, it's in wonderful stone. And that's just like an invitation of the materiality to connect to your surroundings in the present moment. And for my commission, the biggest commission that I've done at the moment, that ended up in part of the hospital commission that I did with Francis as well, as separate but together. The main theme was to create a body of work for the psychiatric patients to find some joy in the everyday. So I collaborated with them through workshops, and they very kindly donated glass from the community, which I later on cut into pieces, played like with Lego, and then make these very joyful and colorful compositions embellished through hand-cutting, heritage hand-cutting techniques, which is particular to Edinburgh. So it's just like how the emphasis on craft on a grand scale, how that has an impact on the day-to-day, and what's the purpose of life? It goes down to like, if you find a teacup that you love, it's just the enjoyment of having coffee in the morning. You have 1 minute that you're just like, oh my God, I love this. Or it's the little things that keep us together. And I think that's the power of art and craft.
Absolutely. I think we've spoken several times in the course of the relationship that we have about this misconception that craft is something nostalgic or superfluous in life. And happily, through setting up Bard, we see so many people, we have so many conversations with people who come in and talk about the intrinsic values that craft brings, and that it has that primal quality to connect people to their surroundings and the objects that they live with and use on a daily basis. And in times of disassociation, disconnection, chaos, fear, those interactions that you have with materials do add up to ground you and make you feel embodied. Craft is also a form of connection between people, between different makers. And it's a holistic, circular economy in a country like Scotland. So many of the people whose work we show and sell at Bard, they belong to rural communities where they are really important sources of social and economic generation. You both touch on these aspects in your work. I mean, Juli, you speak about community a lot, and this aspect of engaging communities in the first instance to donate discarded glass has been a running theme that has sort of grown arms and legs, and you are now working at a much bigger scale with factories and manufacturers to go in and talk to them about waste.
Yeah, so it's been like a really interesting thing because, I mean, coming from Latin America, I grew up with a different north, let's say, or from Costa Rica, where a lot of things are imported, so they're very costly. So we have to be really resourceful, and I mean, quoting like my grandparents, you have to be resourceful with everything, with the waste that you produced, and to be savvy about it. So there's a possibility. The bin is full of opportunities. And when thinking that I'm one person, and also like thinking on the grand scheme of things and how to keep the studio going and to thrive and to push myself out of my comfort zone, in the last year, this is quite recent, I had the opportunity, I got a grant from Inchescar, which is a wonderful foundation here in Edinburgh that supports emerging talent. And it was a research project that gave me the cash to be like, muster up the courage to approach a bigger company to be like, I need to go to your factory to do this project. And then I got to chat to them, and it was wonderful to see, one, their openness, and then two, to just arrive into a new place. The factory is in Czech, so we were both translating and in broken English, which is an opportunity as well. And then they were really excited to see me, excited about what's in the bin, because usually that's what I'm drawn to, the broken pieces or, let's say, or the byproducts of their massive industrial process. So there's a joyfulness there that from the gallery that appreciates the work from that you've imagined the potential of waste and to create something with a bit of sass that if you ask a bottle of wine what it wanted to become when they grew up and they didn't want to be a winemaker like the family, they could be like, I want to be a mermaid. So you oblige. So this is the creative process. But the thing is, how can you invite the audience again? And in this particular occasion, the factory workers, I have been seeing the material for years, and they're so talented, and I mean, what they do is amazing. We couldn't exist without them. And but also they become energized because they see how we perceive the material, and then the next day they arrive and they're just like, Juli would like this. Oh, this is really interesting. And then they get in contact, and so it's like really, that's a wonderful thing, and it's just an invitation to see waste from a different perspective, and especially now, which is so important. And it doesn't only apply to glass, so that's why in my recent, there's some images there in my, I bought a tiny flat which required everything done, and the invitation was to solve design problems with different materials particular to the locality. So there's a bit of stone, and then some timber, that's one of the images, but locally sourced and being, resourceful with, if you just have a little piece, what can you do with that little piece and bring it back to life?
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the entire environment and fit out is made from waste products from a timber yard, stone, mason.
Yes.
You've sort of set different material suppliers the same challenge that you apply to yourself as an artist.
So that was the brief. I just invited them. I was just like, hi, my name is Juli. I'm from Costa Rica. I've been living here. I love the waste. Would you be open to collaborating? And they were excited. And I was just like, the only thing that I want is for it to be waste, or at least that you don't have to buy, you just use offcuts from your studio. And it's a really interesting, I mean, I love it because it's very me. and it's not everybody's cup of tea, but I think it's like when we create something that will withstand time, and I think that's so important about not just where we can just send an email to Amazon. Well, no, not send an email, but that you just on Amazon and it arrives the next day. It sucks out the joy of like even the anticipation, or like when we were children wanting to open a Christmas present. It was just like, oh my God, I can't. So it's the little things. Yeah.
I find so interesting there is the resourcefulness that you talk about is something I think is a huge part of Scottish life and the Scottish mindset. And you mentioned Amazon. For a lot of people living in Scotland, it's not a next day delivery is not an option. And so that attitude to resourcefulness and repair, not in a sort of cute fetishistic way, but it has never really left a lot of communities because it is a necessity. You can't rely on something to turn up the next day at all.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, although I sort of craft doesn't respect borders is something I always say when people ask us, what does Scottish craft mean and what's Scottish about it? But the more that we talk to each other as a community and the more that we look at each other's work and processes, the more I begin to think actually there are some very sort of Scottish aspects that do link all of the work together, even though its expression might look very different in physical form. And that resourcefulness and ingenuity, I think ingenuity is the other one, and care. Frances, you talked about care beautifully. It's a Scottish thing, isn't it? It's sort of pride and a particularity. And
very much so. I mean, I refer back to your first birthday exhibition titled The Grit and the Glamour. And I think that really embodied my experience of working and living in Scotland and, these kind of contrasting experiences where, to get to the Highland Bowl, you have to get your, kind of raincoat on and your wellies on and then walk through the rain. You all experienced it the night that we went to Hopetoun House. And then the next day, the glorious sunshine comes out. And in my practice, I think, particularly working with ceramics, that combination of luscious surfaces, gorgeous glazes, tactile, interactions, and then incredibly durable and long-lasting, and with you through different days, through different light changes, and that contrast, I think, is really epitomizes what it is to live here.
And this ongoing sense of sort of evolving work as well. I think we, as a craft community in Scotland, it's not sitting still, and it's not only about preserving heritage skills from dying out, although that is an important part of it. It is this sort of baked-in marriage with innovation that I find very compelling.
We were just at Dundee Design Festival, and what a glorious experience that was, curated by Stacey Hunter at the old Michelin tyre factory in Dundee, two vast kind of aircraft hangar-sized spaces that were completely transformed by Scottish craftspeople, Scottish designers, and such a vibrant event. It lasted 1 week. We were there on the Designers' Day, and that sort of kind of really collegiate, supportive community was so evident. And I was just like, wow, this is happening here. This is really exciting. And I think it's, through people like Stacey and people like you, it's all been here. And you're starting to really shine a light on what's been happening for us. And
I would extend
fabulous.
that to the DLN as well.
Absolutely.
It sort of takes sometimes outsiders to come in and hold a mirror up to our own reality to see that actually, yes, we are modest as well as a nation, aren't we?
We are a bit modest, aren't we? We need to speak up a bit more.
I love the fact that the Scots have historically invented and gifted the world with several incredible things, from penicillin to the steam engine, the television, the telephone, and the toaster before sliced bread, which always blows my mind. Prophetic, not just innovative. At Bard, we really enjoy engaging with people who are pushing their craft practices forward in interesting ways. One of our favourite examples that I think shows the resourcefulness in reality is the strawback knotting chair process that you probably are familiar with from Orkney chairs, which are arguably Scotland's most famous vernacular piece of furniture. And it's this beautiful curved woven backs. There might be a picture of one in the slideshow at some point, made from straw, which is a byproduct of oats in Orkney. But there aren't as much oats as there were historically. And instead of using straw now, they use sea plastic that gets washed up on the beaches to repair their grandparents' chairs. And for me, it's such a simple but powerful expression of the fact that it's using something that is literally to hand. It obviously has its own connotations that the beaches are filled with sea plastic and ghost rope.
Yeah.
But in the hands of Orkney craftspeople, this has a use and another life. And it's the same story that we see in so many different areas and so many different products. And for me, it encapsulates that wonderful thing that craft is optimistic, and it's not something that deserves to be behind glass in museums or in gift shops on the Royal Mile. It's something that really touches all of our lives.
The fabric of everyday life.
It is absolutely that.
And it's a completely act of revolution.
Yes.
Like a sassy rebel, because in the midst of the consumption and the fastness, and what a luxury to just slow down and indulge in the little things.
Absolutely. And I think Lulu Little's fantastic call to arms yesterday is something that I hope has stayed with all of you like it has with us. We were very moved by it because it put into very powerful words and statements grounded in real projects the importance that craft has in life as something more than decorative.
And that it's worth the time and the effort and the investment, both financially and emotionally, because the enrichment that it brings to projects and the depth of relationships that you can build with a client as a consequence of that, and that you can really get involved in placemaking together, which is really exciting.
Absolutely. I think also we're living in times where the sort of specificity of local culture is more compelling than ever. I think we are all seeing the horrific side effects and impact of globalized, commercialized life and lifestyle. And that idea that we still have those embers of local culture that are alive, and just with a little bit of stoking and being on a platform like this, being able to talk about the power of craft, of place, is a really important fire for the future too.
And working with manufacturers as well, because in both of our experiences, they're skills that are going to disappear. They're incredibly fragile. And so finding, the company that I work with, it's predominantly restoration work. And so to actually start to develop projects where you're, looking to the future and looking at different ways to use what they're being made is so vital. And the same as you, Juli, just the kind of joy that you start to get with the craftspeople who are working on the factory floor. The synergy of that is really exciting. And you see people getting re-energized about different uses for the things that they've been making.
The hardware and the software, as I like to call it. On that note, I can see our timer is running down, but I'd love to say thank you very much to Frances and to Juli, and thank you to all of you, and enjoy the rest of your time here. Well done.
We did it!